Good morning everyone, it's Courtney Knowles here with My Golf Affair, new channel that I'm starting. Today I'm going to be testing the Wishon EQ1-NX single length irons. I've got 5 through pitching wedge, no 5 through sand wedge. I'm going to test these out, show you what kind of gapping I get, what distances I get, any issues, concerns I have with them, pros and cons of single length. I'm going to just hit a bunch of shots rapidly, so I'll speed through those. I'll play a couple so you can get an idea of the sound. I don't know how good that will translate to on the course versus in a studio, but it'll at least give you something. I'm going to start off with the sand wedge and we'll go from there. Last club, 5 iron. Alright, let's talk about the pros of single length. Number one, obviously the single length. All of your irons are the same length. With the Wishon ones, the club heads weigh the same, so 275 grams for every club head. The shafts, you play the same shaft in every club, the same weight, the same tip trim, the same bend profile. So these clubs literally are identical other than the loft, right? So if you close your eyes and you swung your sand wedge and then someone handed you your 5 iron, they feel the exact same. So that's pro number one. Just a side note, the Cobra one lengths don't do that. So with Cobra, the lie angle right here, which is the angle from the shaft to a horizontal measurement, you know, upright or flat, the Cobra clubs have different lie angles, which to me is really odd, and they're opposite of what a conventional iron would do. So your wedges get flatter, your long irons get more upright. I understand the reasoning why they do that, but to me it just kind of ruins the purpose of single length. That's just my opinion. I mean, Bryson DeChambeau plays single length, but his are all the same lie angle, so it's kind of odd that Cobra went that way. But they also have different shafts in their irons. Even though they're the same length, they're different weights, trying to influence ball flight. To me, that's just unnecessary stuff that, you know, the whole point of single length is to get rid of variables, and they're kind of adding more in with their single length idea. So Wishon, I think, has really got it right. So single length in general, shot shaping, number one, or I guess number two would be ball position. So let's say you're hitting a sand wedge, your ball position's, you know, the same position you'd normally put with your 7 iron or 8 iron. 5 iron's the same, you don't have to change, right? So you can go to wedge to 5 iron, you keep it the same. So you'll develop some repeatability and consistency because of that. And then shot shaping, becomes easier to me with single length, because let's say I want to hit a low shot with my 5-iron. Well, back in my stance, right there. Now I want to hit a low shot with the wedge. It's the exact same. High shot. Move the position up with the 5-iron. Same with the wedge. Like, if you have a conventional length 5-iron, your ball position's already up because the club's longer, and now you gotta kind of adapt to that. And not that it's impossible, it just takes more practice and more effort, and with single lengths you can kind of remove that learning curve. Another thing is, let's say you need to hit a little knockdown wedge. You don't have to hit your wedge shots from here every time. You know, if you're hitting your full swing, great, but you can still play golf with your single lengths, right? You need to hit a soft shot, choke up, grip down like you would with any other club. Hit that shot. You don't need to think inside this rigid box that you have to grip every shot the same. At the end of the day, you're still playing golf, right? But what's cool is, you know, you hit a little chip with your sand wedge and you grip down. Well, you go to your 5-iron, it's the exact same. You know, hitting a little punch out 5-iron with the single length, one of the easiest shots ever, and I would know because I'm in the trees a lot. With a conventional length 5-iron, the lie angle's flatter, it's longer, you know, you grip to the end of the grip and you're here probably, you know. There's just such an advantage to that. The gapping, as you can tell, really consistent. I've got really good gaps. There are some concerns I'll mention when I get to the pros, or to the cons, but yeah. The target audience for these are obviously higher handicap, people that struggle with their irons. I'm a scratch golfer. I've played Wishon's Sterling single lengths for 4 years, ever since they came out. I've always been a good ball striker. I had no issues playing conventional length irons. But I got lazy, I got busy, you know, we had a kid, I'm in school, I work full time. I just didn't have time to practice, so I thought, you know, maybe I'll try the single length irons. If they work, then I can go to the range once a week if I have time, hit a 5-iron and a wedge, and my irons are dialed in. I don't really have to go through the whole set. I've played really good golf with them. Would definitely recommend single length to anybody. As far as the EQ1s versus the Sterlings, I would say they're a good upgrade. There is a few downsides. There's only one wedge to the single length EQ1s right now. It's the same issue when the Sterlings first came out. They went 5 through pitch or 5 through sand wedge, and as the demand increased, Tom decided to add more of a player's blade type wedge for a sand wedge and a lob wedge, which I played both and absolutely loved them. So hopefully he'll get a lob wedge out here soon for this set. I heard rumors on his website that he was thinking maybe early spring that he's tooling up a lob wedge to go with the set. So I know some people have issues with the wedges. I never did. Honestly, my wedge game actually got better with the single lengths, which is weird. I think it's just a comfort thing. I'll be honest, it took me, you know, probably a good month mentally to get over the length of a longer sand wedge. But a little bit of practice and just diving into the concept, and then it took off, and I absolutely loved them. Chipping is a little bit different, but I still grip down when I hit chips. I don't chip like this, you know. I grip down, I hit the shot, I open the face. Whatever I need to do, whatever shot I need to hit is what I do, and I have no issues with these. I will say now in the cons section is you are limited on wedges. You know, you go to Cleveland, you go to Vokey, these companies have lines and lines of wedges, different grinds, different sole shapes, different bounces, different lofts, and you can dial in your short game really well. With single length, you have one choice. You have this wedge, or Cobra has one wedge, you know. I think they have a 56 and a 60, but still, like, you don't have the bounce and the grind and all of that. So that's one thing I think as single length takes off and starts to develop, that we'll start to have more options for people that play single length, but we're definitely not there yet. So right to that con section, as you can see, my wedges from, this is 9 pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge. You'll see I have sometimes 18-yard gaps, sometimes 20 with my scoring clubs. The main reason, one, it's not really necessarily because the club's longer, although that does play an influence, but the lofts of these are 5-degree gaps. So most wedges, you'll start to get 4-degree gaps in your scoring clubs, so you can get 12 to 15-yard gaps instead of 18. Well, there's a few factors. One, I live in Utah, so I've got higher elevation. The ball carries forever, right? Combined with the longer length shaft and 5-degree loft gaps, I start to get those 18-yard gaps, right? Sometimes 20 when it's warm and hot outside and I'm warmed up and swinging well. So that can kind of suck when, you know, I hit driver pretty far. So a lot of the courses I play, it's driver wedge. Well, I find that I'm in between wedges all the time, you know. I've got 140 or 130 yard gap wedge and a 110 yard sand wedge, and I hit it to 120, you know. And I've practiced and learned how to choke up and hit those in between shots. But when you're in the scoring range, you know, you want, if you have another wedge that you can just pull out that you know 12-yard gaps and just fire a full swing wedge at 120, you're going to be more precise, you're going to be closer. So that's one con I have, and really about the only con I have with single lengths is I wish that they could target these to the better player. So you're not going to have this issue that I run into if you have an average to slightly below average club head speed, because you're only going to get those 12-yard gaps. But because I swing it faster, the club's longer, elevation, all of those factors, and the 5-degree lofts, I get huge gaps, you know. So I need 4-degree gaps between my wedges so I can really get precise. But that's just for me personally. For most people, the 5-degree loft works great and you don't have any issues. So just something to consider. You can also add a conventional length wedge into your set. I didn't like doing that because I hated getting so used to a longer length and then choking down and having a heavier club head. But that's just me. But whatever you want to do, you can find a lot of options with the single lengths, and really they are great clubs. This wedge with EQ1-NX is a little chunky. You know, the blade length's longer. Hitting out of fairway and stuff's not a big deal, but I do feel like there's a concern when I get into thicker rough or the bunkers, right? When you've got a lot of material to get the club head through, instead of having a more narrow blade length that can just chop through the grass and those bad lies, this club is just kind of digging through. So the bunker might be a little bit more difficult. Thick rough around the greens might be more difficult. So seriously, that's the biggest concern for me, is just the wedges. Full swings are great, even mid, half swings, but the little touches around the green and having too big of gaps, to me, is a downside to single length. So something to consider. There's definitely workarounds. Obviously, you can play conventional length wedges. You know, you can bend this to 54, do 4-degree gaps, and then add, say, a conventional length 58 or whatever. So there are options. I just haven't really explored them yet. But great clubs. Slightly better performance than the Sterlings on off-center strikes. I noticed I hit some off the toe that I probably lost 10 yards of carry, but it still rolled up to my normal distance. So miss hits, you're still getting it up there pretty good. The Sterlings, I noticed on the long irons, a low strike with the 5 and 6 irons were just terrible with the Sterlings. With these, they seem to perform really well, you know. Maybe half a club to a club drop off in carry distance, which is perfectly acceptable if you're misstriking a shot and you're still catching the front of the green or rolling it up. So I would definitely recommend single lengths. Like I said, I've played them for 4 years with no issues. I've played some of my best golf. I've shot my personal best score with them. Definitely recommend them to anybody looking to improve their game. Find something that can maybe dial in their iron play, but just remember it takes a while to get used to. Some people I think can just adjust right away, but just be patient. Maybe switch when you don't have tournaments or serious golf that you're trying to play. Switch when you have some time to practice them around the greens. See if you can get used to the bigger club around the greens. If not, maybe throw a conventional lob wedge or something in your bag. Hope you like that review. I'll get you some pictures and a little bit more close-ups.